You are tuning in to the most informed show on the internet. The Above Limits podcast is an expression of logical thought put into physical form. Subscribing to our channel is the biggest support you can give. Positive vibes and understanding found here. Olympus Mons, your host, is ready to welcome you to the show. Thank you for listening, and now, enjoy the Above Limits podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Above Limits podcast. I am Olympus Mons, your host. Today is the day after the midterm elections, 2018. It's a very heated and very much trending, topic amongst pretty much everybody out there. Everybody was pretty much informed on what was going on out in the world, rather than previous elections where it really, it wasn't that big of a deal. But a lot is at stake. You had a lot of, people out there putting their emotions out on trying to get people to vote that normally would not vote or care about anything having to do with politics or the government. You had a lot of celebrities, a lot of emotions going on telling people why voting for whatever they were voting for mattered. And like I said, a lot was on the line. Basically, what I'd like to start out with is trying to put the idea forward of, what's the next step? What's going to happen next? And these are all my opinions. And one thing about me making these videos and how I pose the questions that I pose is this channel is not a defend Donald Trump's channel. This is a channel devoted to showing you and proving to you how you're being lied to and manipulated by psychological warfare that does exist. We can look through history and find how these people out there that live in the shadows, that have high positions in the government, and have reached to each and every one of you and me to try to sway us into believing what they call misinformation. And now we label that fake news. So this is an anti-New World Order. This is an anti-globalist, bad people, just lying to you for one reason only, and that is for them to seek power. And they do that by the manipulation of your mind and telling you how making you feel emotional, that thinking the world is ending, and we call that fear porn. So anyways, let's go ahead and cue off the great intro music. Let's see, what do I got here? One thing about the outcome. Okay, so the House went to Democrats. They got enough seats to give them control of the House, and you'll see later on how CNN, one of the clips that I have, and I'll show it to you, how they have on the bottom still, almost 24 hours later, giving you the numbers. Because they speak to these people as if they're like watching Sesame Street, and they need to be educated, and they're not so smart. They're viewers, so they have to put that bit of hypnotization that yes, the Democrats won, and you can celebrate that all you want, but it's pretty much normal. It's a normal thing that happens all the time. When Barack Obama became president, soon after, the Republicans took the House. Republicans took the Senate. And it just happened to be for 2 years now that Trump has had control of all branches of the government, and then also is able to nominate 2 Supreme Court justices. It's normal. It's not a big deal. Where it becomes a big deal is that now that the Democrats have control, they will be advocating for the impeachment of Trump and investigating of Trump and in every manner. And one of these videos you'll see where they want to look at Trump's tax records, right? That's fine. If you can do it through a court of law and all legit, fine. Get Trump's tax records. But the thing is the man that's speaking, he talks about how the Congress should have oversight over the president. But I mean, where were you, Congress? Where were you, guy, when George Bush lied to the American public about weapons of mass destruction? Where was the oversight there when we sent 60,000 troops to Iraq to kill 2 million plus Iraqi men, women, and children? Where was the oversight for that when blatantly we got lied to? People forget this, but it's so, they don't like the politics of the man that won the presidency so much that they will basically go through any lengths, as we've seen through with Kavanaugh, to bring woman after woman, to smear a man and, have baseless and unfounded accusations against the man and present it as truth, an absolute truth that you can't question it, because as D.L. Hughley said, he tried to rape the woman when there's no evidence of that happening. And when Schwednick was interviewed, she says, well, that sounds like something that he would do. No, the question is, did he do it? Did you see him do it? So this is the world we live in. This is the madness that we live in today. And one thing that I would have loved, I'm not bitter. I don't really care that they won the House, but I would have loved to see the tears. I would have loved to see the tears. And I would have loved to see how violent leftists and liberals and Democrats would have been when they were not able to have the power to possibly impeach Trump. Where all their complaints and all their crying and all their repetitious slander was met on deaf ears, and they were shut down. I would have loved to see that, but I'm not gonna worry about that. I mean, that's not what it is. I still think they're going to be violent, and you're going to see a political circus happen in front of your eyes fairly soon when these people devote a majority of their time to trying to slander the president wrongly. So let's see this here. Okay, let's start with this. This is the president. It was a heated political day today. If y'all don't know, this is basically everybody's now strategizing on, since we have this power play, what we do next. If they didn't have the power play, they would, like I said, they would have gone to all out violence, possibly, trying to, harm the president. That's how crazy these leftists are, and these people want power. So this was the exchange between Trump and Jim Acosta, and it was pretty funny. So here we go.
To challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms.
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think?
Okay. Listen to Trump's response. I consider it an invasion. I mean, if you were to compare an invading army marching towards the city that they're about to ransack, etc., whatever you want to call it, just compare it in the similarity visually of what it looks like, an invading army marching, to 7,000, migrants marching to the U.S. I mean, if you think that these people are going to stop and go through like a turnstile and fill out a form and wait a couple of days to be rejected as asylum seekers, you're wrong. And it's very similar, visually looking at it, as a invasion. So an adjective to describe what it looks like: invasion. So listen up. If you can't comprehend what I'm talking about, maybe you have no business worrying about this. So here we go. We continue.
That you demonized immigrants in this election
not
to
at all.
try to keep...
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process, and I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your
You know,
campaign...
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
Right. But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
Well, that's true.
So he basically said that we need the people. I mean, there's companies coming in. That's what Trump just said. So, but he wants them to come in legally. You're either for or you're against illegal immigration. Either you want to uphold the law and have the people that have the authority to uphold the law, or you don't. That's where we're at with this. It's very simple logic. We continue.
They weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask.
One thing, the ratings of CNN are down. I think I don't know if you took MSNBC and CNN. I heard a stat. You can compare it to, I don't know, Fox News. I don't fucking know, but their ratings are down. And what is he saying? Let him run the country. That's his job. That's his job to do this. He's the one. He had a platform that he said that he wanted to build this wall, and that he was against illegal immigration. Now he's doing all these things, and he's, it's like that was his platform. That's what he did. And let's see what else. Let's rewind that. Let's see.
So they're hundreds and hundreds of miles.
Oh yeah, they're hundreds of miles away, but they're gonna be here. They're gonna be here eventually. What are we gonna do then? I mean, they're hundreds and hundreds of miles away, but they're coming. You know what I mean? What do you do then? This guy's logic is so stupid. And number one, he's just trolling the president. I mean, I didn't watch this whole thing, but like the president's trying to talk, just answer questions, but every time he goes to CNN or these people, it's always the same thing. Russia and CNN, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, so Trump can talk about migrants and that be like fear porn, him making you live in fear that there's this migrant army coming, but they can do this fear porn that the president is a mole or fucking plant of the Russians, and he's colluding with them. I mean, it's the same tactics. It's the same thing, but we can actually see a visual people coming from those countries. And I've heard stats that the UN has pulled those people, and like 200 of them are criminals and very bad people affiliated with gangs and stuff from those countries. So I mean, the UN is notating this. The UN is creating stats on this, and I don't have that video, but I could show you. I mean, look it up.
away. That's
I
not
think
an
you
invasion.
should, honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings
Let
would
me
be
ask,
much
if
better.
I may
Okay,
ask
that's
one other
enough.
question, Mr. President, if I may ask
Peter,
one
go
other
ahead.
question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's
Mr.
enough.
President,
That's
I was going
enough.
to ask one of the other folks. have
That's
had-
enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr.
Excuse
President,
me. That's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other
Peter,
question,
let's
if
go.
I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have
I'm not concerned
indictments-
about anything with
that you
the
may have
Russian
indictments coming down?
investigation because it's a hoax.
Are you-
That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President,
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter, go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts
Well,
his
I'm
butt
not a
like the
big
rest
fan
of
of
us.
yours either, so
I understand.
to be honest
So
with
let me ask you a question if I can. You repeatedly
you.
said,
You aren't the best.
Mr. President, you repeatedly, over the course
Okay,
of the...
just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Mr. President, over the course of the last several days of the campaign, sir,
Wow. To me, that's just disrupting at that point. You know what I mean? Like, why should you have to engage in some guy that's just disrupting and the president of the United States? I mean, it's uncalled for. Let's go to this woman. This is going to be this has been a major thing that's been brewing as far as the question is something that Trump said he's a nationalist. I mean, I'm gonna use my phone. I'm gonna look up what a national. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna type into Google DEF/nationalist. Okay. Okay, define nationalist. Okay, a person who advocates political independence for a country. Related to nationalist or nationalism. A person who advocates political independence for a country. Okay. So, Trump says he's a nationalist. Okay. Now, the mainstream and leftist networks are trying to equate nationalism with supremacy. So, supremacist, nationalist, and supremacist. Let's see. Supremacist define. An advocate of the supremacy of a particular group, especially one determined by race or sex. So, you can't, in the world of intellectuals, you can't remake a definition. A definition is a definition of a word. So if you're now saying that that supremacy and nationalism are the same, you're mistaken. Let's see nationalist and thesaurus. Let's see nationalist and thesaurus. So that's similar words. Let's see what other similar words. Flag waver, jingoistic, loyalist, nationalist, partisan, patrioteer, volunteer, good citizen, statesperson, ultra-nationalist. So listen up, people. Before you want to try to debate me on words, I'm giving you baby food. This is simple logic. So now let's do a thesaurus. Supremacist. Let's see what words are similar there. MCP. Anti-feminist. Bigot. Chauvinist. Female chauvinist. jingoistic. Well, maybe jingoist is the same as nationalist. Male chauvinist pig, manist, masculinist, misanthrope, racist, sexist, supremacist. They are not the same word. So the mainstream media is trying to tell you, because most people are dumb, they're saying that because Trump, before I look up a definition of what is nationalism, what is nationalist, you love your country. That's it. That's the bottom line. That's the simplest form of nationalist. So here we go.
President Yamiche Alcindor with PBS NewsHour. On the campaign trail, you called yourself a nationalist. Some people saw that as emboldening white nationalists. Now people are also saying that the president.
It's such a racist
There are
question.
some people that say that now the Republican Party is seen as supporting white nationalists because of your rhetoric. What do you make of that?
I don't believe it. I don't know. Why do I have my highest poll numbers ever with African Americans? Why do I have among the highest poll numbers with African Americans? I mean, why do I have my highest poll numbers? That's such a racist question. Honestly, I mean, I know you have it written down and you're going to tell me. Let me tell you, it's a racist question.
And Mr. President,
I love it. You know what the word is? I love our country. I do. You have nationalists, you have globalists.
Flag
you also
waver.
love the world. And I don't mind helping the world, but we have to straighten out our country first. We have a lot of problems.
And
Excuse me. But to say that, what you said, is so insulting to me. It's a very terrible thing that you said.
And Mr.
Okay,
President, people have you talked about middle class tax cuts on the campaign trail. How will you get Democrats to support that policy?
You have to ask them.
Well,
Hey,
what's your plan for working with Democrats on a middle class tax plan?
You know what my plan is? I'll ask them. And if they say yes, I'm all for it. And if they say no, there's nothing you can do because you need their votes. Go ahead.
So what did he say? He said that, that's messed up for you to label me that. I mean, what's so bad in stating that? Why is saying that like you're being reverse racist? You're being racist against me. You're equating the word nationalist with supremacist. You're trying to make the word the same word. We just said nationalist means flag waver. That's what he said. I love my country. That's what he said. You cannot do this. And it's time for you people to wake up and understand you are being manipulated. You are possibly not smart enough to actually be in these types of conversations, and you should bow out. So let's see here. My main thing that I talk about is, the mainstream media is the leftist media is one arm of the New World Order. Okay. And it's the one arm of the deep state. It's probably the most effective tool when fighting a war is the info war. It's the war of ideas, the war of propaganda. It's effective in getting into your psyche and bringing you to emotion to cause a reaction. So, I personally, every once in a while I watch these RT reports, and the main thing that I can see different between RT, which is Russia Today, which the mainstream media will say, well, they're just a mouthpiece for the Russian government. Maybe, I don't know. But I do know that they report the news and they report the facts. They do old school reporting, meaning the way the the mainstream media, even Fox News is probably the worst. But we don't watch Fox News for that reason. And when you start seeing it on mainstream media or the other media out networks, you go like, what the fuck? Where am I supposed to get information from? These people are worse than Fox News now. And like, let's say like Real Time with Bill Maher. That's a very left-leaning, opinionated show. So you can expect that satirical, that comedic, and speaking with emotion type of entertainment. But this isn't entertainment. This is supposed to be the news to inform you of what's going on in the world. And they are so left leaning and just being like, oh, this is our side and we're not winning and we got to do this. And we're in a struggle and we're in a war right now. This is the worst time it's ever been because this man's in office. So let's listen to basically the first part of this video. They're going to talk about how, what I say is that this is pretty much normal. The House went to Democrats, and luckily the Senate didn't go to Democrats, because then if they would, we would just say, okay, let's welcome in President Mike Pence, because they would impeach him and easily get him out of office for no fucking reason. So very normal. Here we go.
Republicans did expand their control of the Senate. But how big is this win compared to other midterm elections? Is this just another record in a hamster wheel? Well, RT Sarah Montez de Oca joins me now to take us down memory lane, midterm memory lane. And do we have as much of warm and fuzzy feelings about this midterm as past?
I think so. Scotty, last night we saw these big wins for both Republicans and Democrats. Now, the buildup for the midterm elections seemed a lot more heated than usual, almost at a presidential level. But while there was a huge voter turnout increase in both parties, it seems like history largely tended to repeat itself. And Trump had no problem calling it a huge win for the Republican Party.
We saw the candidates that I supported achieve tremendous success last night. As an example of the 11 candidates we campaigned with during the last week, 9 won last night.
Now let's start with last night. The Democrats took control of the House. Republicans will expand its majority in the Senate, as predicted. And while there are some historic moments, like more than 100 women elected to Congress, which is a record number, the shift in congressional control is really nothing new at all. Nearly every president sees his party lose scores of seats in Congress during these midterm elections. When President Obama was in office, we saw the same, that the president's party taking blows and losing ground after a historic presidential win. Now, during the 2010 midterm elections, President Obama lost the House in a wave much bigger than last night's, largely a backlash to the Democrats passing Obamacare. And in his second midterm back in 2014, he saw more losses again in the House and, more importantly, lost control of the Senate. During President George W. Bush's midterm election in 2006, the Democratic Party captured control of both the House and the Senate, and also took control of many governorships. Now, this was in large part thanks to the protracted war in Iraq and Bush's response to Hurricane Katrina, among many other issues. But in 1994, during Bill Clinton's presidency, the Democrats faced a historic loss during the midterms. This was known as the Republican Revolution. The Republican Party gained a majority of seats in the House for the first time since 1952. They also took back the Senate and brought an entirely new generation of conservative politicians right into government. Now, Scotty, we should also know and take into consideration that not only was last night's midterm not unprecedented, it will likely change very little here in Washington, D.C. The Republicans will still be able to confirm judges and cabinet appointees in the Senate. The only major change for Democrats is taking control of the House committees and really the ability to issue subpoenas. So perhaps that's why both sides today are comfortable in claiming their victories on each of their sides.
Well, I know it's shocking that President Trump could.
So let's make do a compare and contrast to this news, and what we've seen from CNN. This lady's just telling you how it is. And that's exactly what I said. It's normal. It's normal. It's checks and balances. They can't impeach the president because they got control of the Senate. They can't do shit. They can investigate, but I mean, one thing Trump should be doing is investigating everybody. I'd be investigating son of a bitch, and he just got Sessions to resign, and That was announced today, and you know all we can say about that is these people aren't playing nice. These leftists, these liberals, these Democrats, they aren't playing nice, and you got to resort to their level if you want to win. And I would love to see Donald Trump using his authority and power to totally go after these people and figure out what's in their closets. So we'll continue with this video. Make note, my point, why I'm playing this, is to compare and contrast people presenting facts. You cannot disprove what is happening here. She's telling you how it is, compared to, the other side that's just like, oh, well, he's a bad guy and this is outrageous.
So this to be a success out of the gate. But, there's a real issue about the subpoenas. Is it enough that the Democrats can just challenge and say and throw subpoenas at them and throw ideas of investigations happening and it not go anywhere because it could be put down by the Senate? Is that enough for the Democrats to be excited about?
For now it is. I mean, it was something that they weren't sure. It was, the voter turnout turned out to be more than even they expected. And so we'll see what happens, but they're excited.
Well, at least both sides can win. I like when everybody is winning. At least somebody got a participation trophy somewhere. Thanks, Sarah. And as you watched the midterm coverage across the networks last night, I doubt you were surprised by the coverage. We spoke to Larry King about the state of the big three cable networks.
And they don't do news anymore. In fact, RT is one of the few channels doing news. RT does news. CNN stopped doing news a long time ago. They do Trump. Fox is Trump TV, and MSNBC is anti-Trump all the time.
Now we're joined by Robin Anderson, professor of communications and media studies at Fordham University. I have to say thank you.
So Larry King's a, world-renowned reporter. I think he said it how it is. I mean, can you argue with that statement he said? I mean, do you want me to play it again? Should we play it again? For those that don't get it. Let's play it for those that don't get it.
The big three cable networks.
And they don't do news anymore. In fact, RT is one of the few channels doing news. RT does news. CNN stopped doing news a long time ago. They do Trump. Fox is Trump TV, and MSNBC is anti-Trump all the time.
Now we're joined.
Do you want to argue? Or I don't prove my points. I think I do a pretty good job. I mean, are you listening? So we got two more videos I want to cover. This video is just an example of, the charades that's going to go on. Dealing with now that the Congress is in the control of by the Democrats. So here we go.
And I think that there are some precedents for this, but I hope that the president would do this on his own, largely because every president since Gerald R. Ford has voluntarily done this. We want to make sure here that legal counsel, perhaps the Joint Committee on Taxation, which is made up of tax attorneys, CPAs, and economists, that might be the proper agency. Recall here that it is illegal for a member of Congress.
What about the IRS? Is anybody like anybody that's been audited? I think the IRS is probably like the worst collections agency that you could possibly go up against. Like, they always win. What about the IRS? I thought there's already a body that investigates these things. Internal Revenue Service. Come on, guys. This is just charades, man. This is all to waste people's time and to try to build a case against Trump that's unfounded, and people on the left will believe anything that comes out of these people's mouth.
Recall here that it is illegal for a member of Congress solely to release anybody's tax returns. But here, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, according to the law, consistent with the law, has the ability to ask for the president's tax returns. And then I assume that there would be a court case that would go on for a period of time. Yeah, I think proportionality is very important here. And Congress has a constitutional responsibility to oversee the executive. After all, in Philadelphia in 1787, Mr. Madison made that argument. And the idea was that to establish a constitutional body that was not reflective of the personalities that were involved, but more reflective of the idea of responsibility.
Yep. So this is the last video I'd like to go, and this is, let's see the title. Jim Acosta responds after heated exchange with Trump. I mean, his trolling of Trump during a press conference. Here we go.
The president opened up that hour-and-a-half appearance before the news media in the East Room of the White House, attacking the news media. Yes. Continued it throughout the questioning, and he ended it with the same. We've been hearing a lot of it. The news media is the enemy of the American people. He had this exchange with our own.
I think the guy asked him. He's like, "Do you think that Jim Acosta?" He's like, well, "You're the one saying that we're the enemy of the people." Well, I mean, if you're lying and trying to manipulate people into believing nonsense, I mean, this is not a satirical show. This is supposed to be the news where a majority of people go to for comfort and understanding what's going on in the world, and it's biased. It is biased. This should not exist. It is destroying humanity. And at some point in time, we're going to see a climax. And it will be a volatile situation when that happens because of these people.
Chief White House correspondent Jim Acosta.
Miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working.
Let me bring in Jim Acosta now, if I can. I believe he's at the White House. And Jim, that must have been a surreal experience. Obviously, you were being very aggressive.
Look at this creep.
As is the job of a White House correspondent. David Gregory and I are sitting here talking about our experiences.
Yep.
Pissing off everybody in that room, pissing off President Obama, pissing off President Bush, asking questions in a way that made them mad at us. But President Trump did something that I've never seen an American president do, which is go on a personal rant against you for the questions you were attempting to ask.
Well, Jake, when they go low, we keep doing our jobs. I mean, that's the way I look at it. And, you know, I had a question to ask, and if we had played the tape a little bit before that exchange, you would have seen the question that I was asking, which was essentially about this lie that he told before the midterm elections, that this caravan of migrants moving from Central America to the U.S. border with Mexico is somehow an invasion, when it's not. They're still hundreds of miles away, and they pose nothing of a threat to the United States. But the president used that language, obviously, as we've talked about so many times, to galvanize his base. He just didn't like hearing that question. He didn't like being challenged on that point, and he certainly doesn't like being called out for his falsehoods. But of course, Jake, as you were just mentioning, that's our job. That's what we do over here. That's what Wolf did when he was over here as a White House correspondent as well. And we just can't be intimidated by that sort of thing. I was struck by the fact that the president, we thought, was going to come in there and do this victory lap. It sounded very much like a pity party. The way he was talking about lawmakers that wouldn't stand by him on the GOP side in various House races. He seems to be sort of unaware of the fact that his immigration rhetoric and his rhetoric on many levels was just turning off a lot of those suburban swing district voters. That's why people like Mike Kaufman in Colorado were staying away from him, and he just doesn't understand that. I think the other point that needs to be made is that during this press conference, the president time and again seemed to be attacking journalists of color. He was attacking my friend April Ryan, telling her to sit down. At one point, he went after Yamiche Alcindor with PBS, saying that she had a racist question because she asked about this concern out there that when he says he's a nationalist, that's a dog whistle to white nationalists all over the country. It's a very fair question. As a matter of fact, I asked it in the White House Oval Office a couple of weeks ago, and he answered the question there. So I think what we saw from the president, despite the fact that they were framing this as
That's it, guys. President's a racist. This guy proved it.
the victory lap, and he was tweeting up a storm like, he was all fired up for 2020. He sounded, I thought, very depressed, very despondent, almost defeated in the way he was
The president's depressed also. He's a racist and he's depressed.
talking about these election results, and I think that's probably why you saw things spiral out of control. The president's not used to seeing himself lose. And he lost big. He lost the House of Representatives. And while there are a lot of people spinning, well, no, this is not a big loss to the president.
So did Obama.
There was a red wave in the Senate and so on. What we saw in the East
normal.
Room during this White House press conference, guys, I think was just really an acknowledgement on the
Look at
president's
this.
part that he does.
Look at this. It's almost 24 hours later, and they still got the U.S. House needed to control 218, 222 Democrats. That's how stupid CNN viewers are. They got to be taught like Sesame Street. Sesame Street for
like
idiots.
He lost something yesterday, and that he understands that the job moving forward is going to get a whole lot tougher in this town because he does have the House of Representatives now falling into the Democratic hands. But as for being called the enemy of the people and so on, Jake, Wolf, all of our folks there who are on the set there with you, I think the American people know. We're friends of the American people. We're going to defend the American people, and we're going to stand up for our
liars.
To seek the truth in this country, and
You're
the president
liars.
can call us all the names in the world, but we're just going to keep doing our jobs.
Let me read a statement that CNN has released following your exchange with the president at this news conference and other journalists' exchange, and what the president was saying. This is a statement from CNN. This president's ongoing attacks on the...
This is a statement from CNN, guys. Response to Donald Trump.
press have gone too far. They are not only dangerous, they are disturbingly un-American. While President Trump has made it clear he does not respect a free press, he has a sworn obligation to protect it. A free press is vital to democracy, and we stand behind Jim Acosta and his fellow journalists everywhere. That statement from the CNN Communications Department. I'm not going to go back to Jim Acosta. I know he's got a lot going on over there, but that's a very strong statement from CNN.
It's a strong statement from CNN. And look, Jim's exchange with President Trump was not in a vacuum. I mean, President Trump attacked NBC. He attacked PBS. He attacked people from conservative news outlets. He attacks the press. If there's he thinks questions. I mean, if you just read the transcript of what Acosta was asking the president and what President Trump's response was, Acosta was asking about the ads and he was asking about the Mueller investigation. Those are all legitimate lines of inquiry, and that is our job to ask these questions. Now, maybe some people...
They've been asking it for weeks and months, the same fucking question. They say it's the same disruptive question that they keep on asking. Why? It's gotcha journalism. That's all it is. Bullshit. This shit shouldn't exist. It will destroy humanity.
Don't like how one reporter asks a question or don't like how another reporter asks a question. It doesn't really matter. The point is the questions. We are supposed to bring them to the president. The president's response was to personally attack Jim Acosta. This is the president of the United States, all right? We're not on equal footing. The president is way up here. Individual reporters are way down here. We are supposed to ask them questions.
Basically, you just said that we're nobodies and he's the president of the United States, which is totally true. I mean, I don't see why he's like trying to explain all this. Like I said, I mean, CNN viewers must be that stupid.
And yes, they always think we're rude. They always think we're impertinent. Obama thought it. Bush thought it. Clinton thought it. It goes on and on and on. So
right there, they could show examples of their journalists getting into it with Obama or journalists and you know, getting into it with Clinton. They have the tapes. They have the resources. They won't play it because it doesn't exist. These people are harassing Trump, and now that the Congress is in control of leftists, they'll harass him there too, and try to stop any way of getting his agenda passed and accomplished.
The idea that CNN is putting out a statement like that is great, and what I like about it the most is they're not just standing up for Acosta, they're talking about everybody in that room.
And on that note, we shouldn't forget, and we mentioned this earlier, but it bears repeating, that the president, not once, not twice, but 3 times, said an African-American reporter's question, legitimate question, about his use of the word nationalist or nationalism, and his embracing of that concept, that questioning that is racist. I don't even know where to start with that. It makes no sense.
I think I already proved what nationalist means. You cannot, listen up, those who can't hear. You cannot change a definition of a word. A word is defined as such. You cannot change its meaning. Any intellectual would tell you that. So trying to reach and equate nationalist with supremacist is incorrect and wrong. Bottom line. So whatever this lady's talking about, it is just fart sounds. Blah, 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 blah. Emotion, non-factual, trying to get at your psyche for you to believe this manipulating nonsense.
At all. The term nationalism, anybody who has studied it.
Why is she looking in that direction she's looking? Let's see. Look at the way she's looking. Maybe she's reading something. Maybe somebody's like, here's a definition. Look, watch.
The term nationalism, anybody who has studied it for more than 5 minutes has an understanding that, of course, there are racial, not just tinges to it, but there's a racial bent to it. It is and has been used in a very racist way. And whether he knew it or not, he should have known it. And then by making it worse in calling an African-American reporter basically racist.
Why does it matter? Why does it matter if she was fucking purple or goddamn yellow or whatever the fuck? Doesn't matter. She's using a word incorrectly and she should be shamed for that. Just like Trump shamed her and said, exactly what he said. What did he tell her? Can you not remember? He said, you're wrong for saying that and you should be ashamed of yourself. That's called shaming somebody. When number one, she should be shamed for using a word incorrectly, but she should also be ashamed for trying to equate the president as a racist because he used a word that she can't use correctly. Bottom line. Point. If you can't understand the point, maybe this isn't for you. Okay? Maybe you should watch football or something.
Right.
But that's how he plays.
That's how he plays. Remember, John, the first time he said,
doesn't make sense.
I'm a nationalist. He opened it by saying, I know I'm not supposed to say this.
You're right.
He knows that
You're
word
right,
has
buddy.
baggage. He also knew in the last weeks of the campaign where he escalated a legitimate debate about border security, a legitimate debate about illegal immigration into race baiting and fear-mongering. And now he thinks it worked when he looks at the Senate map. And so that is his default, to go to these confrontations with the press, to accuse people of racism. The interesting thing to me, beyond that, let's take it to another wrinkle, the African-American women journalists asking the question. That was the part I was trying to make the point earlier about Nancy Pelosi. In addition to the default to race, the default to fear, this president does not like being challenged by women. And so I am just fascinated by the current, the coming.
Oh man, this president doesn't like to be challenged by women. I can't listen to that garbage no more. I am so sorry. I cannot hear that retardation. This has been the Above Limits podcast. I am Olympus Mons. Continue to watch. Of course, subscribe to the channel. That is the greatest thing that you can do for the support of this channel. Subscribing and continuing to watch. I don't even care if you like the video, just watch it. So this is what I do. This is what I talk about. I believe I've presented my ideas in a very, very, very cogent and professional way. And I would, like I said, continue to watch. Go to the AboveLimitsPodcast.com, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see y'all some other time.